Hello, welcome to our channel. As we adjust our camera, we apologize about YouTube making our videos sideways. There's nothing we can do. If the FBI wants to censor us, they censor us. Anyway, welcome to our channel. What you're going to hear is unbelievable. There's a blackout on the news in the war in Iran, but what you're going to hear in the financial news will blow your mind. And if you're not buying gold and silver to put it in your hand by the time we're done with this video, there's something wrong. When we talk about gold and silver, when we hold it, we own it. We go to Noble Gold because we buy and sell. We buy from Noble Gold, and if we want to sell, we're going to sell to Noble Gold. We're going to avoid a lot of taxes, a lot of headache. If you want, you can store your gold with Noble Gold, especially if you've got a 401k. It's really inexpensive. You roll it over, gold and silver are going to go up, and there's going to be a failure to deliver this month, but this time everybody knows it. There was a failure to deliver silver in the end of September and at the end of December. Nobody cared. It was totally covered up. The silver mines are empty. They're shutting down. They don't produce silver coins. The U.S. doesn't. India doesn't. All over the world, they're not producing silver. It's all being used for munitions. So, I go to Noble. Whatever they're spraying on us is very nasty. I apologize. They want the people in the Puget Sound dead. Otherwise, they wouldn't be spraying it. Anyway, the war rages on. There's complete information blackout. Iran says they sunk 4 carriers. The U.S. says 4 carriers were not even touched. They said that only 3 carriers were involved in the war. Yeah, okay. You know, Iran, you shouldn't have jumped up and down and said death to America and tried to kill the president in 2 assassination attempts. That was probably stupid on your part. So the U.S. claims that there were 8 service members killed, and yet the German hospitals are filled with American wounded, indicating a lot more people were killed in this exchange than 8. Who really knows? But we do know when the war will end. When Iran capitulates and bows to its master and says, we will issue digital ID and programmable money. Except Iran's out of money. They were preparing to evacuate Tehran because they have no water. Iran has no water. From all sources, it's dried up. And they didn't build desalination plants like the other Arabian countries. In fact, they're knocking out the desalination plants and the oil and liquid natural gas plants all over the Middle East. So Europe ain't getting no oil. Their economy's in the trash. The little demons, according to the Lucifer Trust, that run Europe, Maersk, etc., Macron, little demon-possessed girly boy, well, he doesn't have an Adam's apple. He's a girl, and he's demon-possessed. So his job is to destroy France. What can the people in France do? They're overwhelmed with illegal alien black Muslims who are tearing France apart. And if you go to fight one of them, you get arrested. It's a very bad situation. I don't know that Trump can do anything to change it. But anyway, the war ends when Iran agrees and bows to their master, says we'll have digital ID. In the meantime, the United States has put out an order. Boeing makes 15,000 bombs a year. Roughly 41 bombs a day. So Trump has gotten a hold of Lockheed Martin and Boeing and said, let's triple that production. Let's not make 41. Let's make 120 bombs a day. More targets. And then the U.S. is manufacturing 800 drones a day. Let's increase that to 2,400 drones a day. Yeah, that ought to do it. More targets. And this is a big country. We're going from 100 missiles a day production, 100 missiles a day. Of course, this is costing you money. We're going to go to 300 missiles a day. Well, that's 9,000 targets a month we can target with missiles alone. Not just 3,000 targets, but 9,000. So who are we going to invade after we take out Iran? Who knows? F-15 production. F-15 was flown 55 years ago. So we're going to make more of them. We're not going to use anti-gravity propulsion ships. We're not going to use the space program. We're not going to use compressed titanium. We're going to kill American troops in F-15s. Anyway, you can expect massive inflation now that the Gulf of Hormuz is only producing about 20, or leaving the Gulf of Hormuz is only about 20% of the oil. Now there's about 100 million barrels of oil harvested a year or a day in this world. We're not going to go to water-powered cars. We're going to destroy planet Earth. That's Satan's goal. I know. I get his newsletters. So they're here to destroy. There's over 20,000 mercenaries working for the oil companies, and they're here to kill and destroy. So we're going to produce oil, and we may even have another oil crisis because of what's going on in the Gulf of Hormuz. 20% of the oil is leaving. Trump says, get some guts and leave. Well, these guys don't have the guts. They're working on a slim margin, and they fill up their oil tanker with oil, and then they're sitting there anticipating Iran or the Yemens or the Palestinians or the Lebanese or some Muslim Arab group funded by the Democrats to start pounding these oil tankers. Yeah, that's what they've been doing with the money all these years, funding the terrorists. I've been watching it for years. You go over there, you find out, and the FBI's involved. That's why they wouldn't stop the exportation of nuclear moxie rods from the Chernobyl nuclear reactor to Iran when I was there, because it was the FBI that wanted Iran to build nukes. That's why I went to Russia. So are we going to have another oil crisis like in 1971? Maybe. But you can count on several things. You can count on never finding out the truth about what's going on in the Middle East. Because ABC, NBC, CBS are funded by the Federal Reserve System, U.S. Treasury, which gives the banks money at 1%, which gives the wholesale banks money at 3%, 2% difference, which is supposed to lend at 5% to the corporations. But they get a little greedy. Sometimes they lend to us at 30%, sometimes they lend to the corporations at 8%. The banks are getting greedier and greedier, making the rich richer and the poor poorer. Screw the American law. American law is meaningless. We don't care about American law. We can do anything we want. We control the money. Trump is a little wimp. That's what they say behind closed doors. I know. Been there. So where has all this funny money gone? Where have they hidden the money that they're giving out to 100 million refugees? Half of them live outside the United States. Yeah, $6 trillion a year could be saved if we cut those refugees living overseas. You know, they're giving 100 million Americans, or 100 million non-Americans free dental, and the 15 million retired people can't get free dental. Your moms and dads, their teeth are cracking apart, while the people at Salishan, 73.5% Korean refugees, if you're a white male, you can't get into Salishan, low-income housing. So I just ran into another black gal, was given a house. Just given a $500,000 house. You're black, here's a house. Where's all that money coming from? How come the refugees get over 500 houses just here in Tacoma worth $500,000 apiece? Why are we still building hundreds of thousands of units right in the Tacoma area to house refugees who get $8,500 a month while your mom and dad get $1,200 a month? Where's the money coming from? Well, that's a good question. Why do we get the money to fund 50 million illegal aliens on welfare? Because 95% are on welfare. Now, a lot of times the guys work, but they live with the mom and she's on welfare. And she's allowed to work so many hours of the year. So she's on full welfare, plus she can work so many hours, maybe 1,000 hours of the year. So she has a job and she's on welfare, collecting food stamps and all the benefits, free dental, free medical. So that's 150 million welfareites and refugees being supported by 100 million working Americans whose jobs are decreasing and wages are going down. So where do they put all these trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars? Well, first of all, they just make it up on the computer. Poof. Send it out. We're going to end up money like Rwanda. Here's $1 trillion of Rwanda money. $1 trillion certified Rwanda money, gold-plated. Yeah, right. Anyway, Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. You know how much this is worth? Nothing. couldn't even get a cup of coffee with that. That's where we're headed. Hyperinflation. Rwanda, the Muslim nation that kills Christians. Let them go down in flames. This is their third or fourth money print in so many years. So, what happens? Well, we showed you shyster 1 billion silver coins. Of course, there's no silver to back it up. And when there's a failure to deliver again, at the end of March, there may be mayhem. Hundreds of trillions of dollars will go kaput. Speculation, betting, everything, because there's no silver to back this up, you see. So it's worthless. It's not even worth the paper to print it on. I even have printed it on the back side of a story because it's not worth anything. So the U.S., the Shyster Corporation issues $1 trillion in bond money. Doesn't say whether it's U.S. dollars, but assume it's U.S. dollars. So I, the Shyster Company, issue a certificate worth $1 trillion to the bearer. Now, we have some Standard Oil bearer bonds that Standard Oil won't cash in because they say they're too old. So if you have a bearer bond, I have Russian bonds. As a Russian citizen, I can't cash in the Russian bonds. Bonds were never meant to be turned in. They were only meant to be issued. So the government issues $1 trillion in bonds, which the banks turn into cash. Now, what do they do with this bond? This will blow your mind. It's called funny money. And when you understand this concept, you're going to run, you're going to run for gold and silver. You're not going to run for the fake gold because it's worthless. You're going to run for the real gold. So these bonds, these U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. Treasury notes, usually less than 3 years bonds or more than 3 years. We used to have U.S. Treasury stamps before the dollar hit the toilet. And hyperinflation came in back in the 70s. The bond is sold to, are you ready? The CIA with BlackRock created in 2009 through Nakamajajaja. It's the CIA created something called blockchain technology. That's when the U.S. debt was 12 trillion and the deferred debt was 100 trillion. Deferred debt, remember, today we're spending money not collected until 2027. That's right, they spent 2 years of money in 1 year. So, they sell this bond to a crypto. So the crypto creates cryptos out of thin air. They say, we're not going to create any more cryptos. You can mine the cryptos, and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and you get 2 or 3 cryptos. Well, the crypto company just makes these up. And they buy the bonds. So $1 trillion of bonds goes into some crypto, and then it vanishes. So the United States has just spent $1 trillion in the last month. They've just spent $1 trillion. They sold about nothing because they have to redeem $250 billion of bonds a week. And they can't. They're only redeeming about 50 billion. So $200 billion worth of bonds is either purchased by the Federal Reserve System, which says we didn't buy them, they're not on our books, or crypto. So the cryptos are buying up bonds. So the Federal Reserve issues $1 trillion to, say, Bank of America, which then at 1%, which then lends it to Bank of America wholesale to retail at 3%, and then they lend it out at 8% to these corporations. But in order to create this $1 trillion, there has to be a paper trail. So they issue a $1 trillion bond. Now we're not talking hundreds or thousands or millions or billions. We're talking trillions. Echelons above reality. That's what we called it in the military. Echelons above reality. So, and then the cryptos buy it. They create stablecoin, Bitcoin, whatever they create. That's why I can't get my money out of Coinbase. Because they're in bed with the Federal Reserve System. And if I save Trump's life and stop a nuclear war, I can't get anything out of any investment I have. Because they censor and destroy, because they want to build the temple in Jerusalem, bring back the Antichrist, have a nuclear war, and destroy humanity and put the remaining on digital ID and programmable money so we can all be slaves of our masters. They're ready to build the temple. It's already prefab. They could build it in 3 days. They know where it goes on the North Gate. Muslims built their temple on the wrong spot. What else is new? The FBI is so embedded with the Muslims. I went to a Muslim temple here in Tacoma, and there were so many FBI agents surrounding that Muslim temple. They are embedded in there. They use them as their little slaves. Get them all frothing at the mouth to do terrorism. Anyway, been there, done that. So the bearer of this bond sells it to Bitcoin, gets $1 trillion of Bitcoin money, then can sell it on the open market and spend it however he wants. Drug cartels, whatever. If I want to buy $40,000 worth of cocaine through Bitcoin, nobody knows the difference. So the bond is issued to some crypto, and I'm not saying it's Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin's nose is clean. I don't know. But Coinbase wouldn't give me the money, so you have to go through a broker. If you want to deal in crypto, go to Noble Gold, 877-646-5347, because they deal with people who won't hold your money back. But Coinbase sure does. It's been 4 years. Anyway, I'll tell you, this is the biggest scam in history. A crypto will create $1 trillion and then buy a U.S. bond. And then it vanishes into the AI. Whoosh. As one AI begins to take over another AI, which takes over another AI. Pretty soon, you go to look for your investments in there and they don't exist. The system's going to blow. I'm sure of it. Gold and silver. Enough warning. Either you do it or you don't, you know. When it goes, and then you won't be able to. Anyway, then we'll have a new system. Hopefully they don't blow us up in the process. Hey, you think that's a joke? You got to talk to these guys. God bless. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.